Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Jad Yazbek, aka Ledwarf. Feedasoul in the house.
It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to join you. And I'm really excited for the next hour.
Awesome. Well, I really I was, you know, when we met recently, and obviously your label partners, or one of them, I've obviously known for a couple of years now, and I wasn't familiar with the actual label, the project itself. Like, I hadn't heard anything, and then after you sending me the recent the recent promo, I was really super impressed, man. Like, I was really, like, I loved the sound. I found it to be really refreshing to hearing this sort of house music coming out of the region, coming out of Lebanon. And and then, you know, I it'd be great to chat with you and learn more about what you're doing, your involvement with Feedasoul as well. Mostly, and learning a little bit about you recently, you know, learning that you were living from outside of Beirut and made your way to the city, and you created, I guess, you know, developing and persevering to push a certain sound and sticking to your vision, and, you know, dealing with all sorts of challenges of making a name for yourself in Beirut. Yeah, I want to learn, like, tell us more about that. Like, you, when was it that you left Byblos and made your way to Beirut, and how was it back then, and, you know, beginning?
Honestly, coming from outside Beirut, it was kind of tough to make your name, because everything that we wanted to be a part of was situated in the city itself, in Beirut. So we didn't have the proper connections. Like, we had the connections that helped us in the way where we were stuck. We felt like we were stuck at some point, my partners and I, in this small city outside where everything was actually happening. And it took us a couple of years to actually realize that making a move and actually believing in something that you want to go there, so just make the move and go do it, was a bit hard for us, because we always felt like we were the, if you want, kind of outsiders, but this was not the case. You know, Beirut had an open hand. They just were locked in a certain part of the map. So unless you introduce yourself personally, there was no way of getting there. And when we first started, and I'm talking about like 10 years ago, social media was not there and was not relevant enough. I mean, people figured out DJs through flyers and through radios, and your presence on social media didn't make that much of an effect, and you couldn't connect with the proper people. So we started opening up and introducing ourselves.
When you say we, because, like, you were solo, you left Byblos and moved to Beirut. Did you connect with your label partners back then, or was that
me and my label partners actually started together? We started as a collective, and we continued as a collective. It wasn't at any point a solo show. We were really caught up in the, if one makes it, everybody makes it, and we strategized together, we worked together. So this is why I refer to we more than I refer to myself, because it was a collective effort to get out of Byblos.
So you were all from Byblos?
We're all from Byblos. We
including
lived like
Patch?
5 minutes apart, including Patch.
Well, yeah. Right on. Okay, that I didn't know. Okay.
So I took the personal move to move my house to Beirut because of my day job back then, but we already had made the connections way before I actually moved out of Byblos. We started, when we started Feedasoul, it was purely as a move to to actually expose a new sound from a city outside of Beirut. And this was the first push. And once we started that, we started appearing on the map, if you want. And the people and the promoters and club bookers, for instance, like Ronald Hajar, Ronan, they started realizing, listen, these guys they have a new sound. They're coming out from a city that's not so close to us. We're not familiar with it, but they have the qualities and they have the quality music to back them up. So let's check them out. So we invited Ronald for a casual sit together. We wanted him to record a podcast for our podcast series for the label as we first started. So he came, we brought a couple of bottles of booze, just a bit of pizza, around 10, 15 people in the studio. And we actually made a genuine connection, and it started from there, and it was a roller coaster.
And who was that? Who was that guy?
His name is Ronan. He's one of the pillars.
Of course. Yes. Okay.
Yeah,
Ronan.
Yeah, he's one of the pillars of the music scene in Lebanon. He's a DJ, club promoter, radio show host. He's all of that in one package.
Yeah.
And it started from there, and people started enjoying house music more. And that's why we thought to stick with house music, because it represents all of us. It's something we could all relate to at some point. So, and that's how it started, basically.
Yeah. So I remember when I first came over to the region in 2010, I felt there was a big gap. Like in the middle of there, you had, I came over and I met, there was 2 years in for the BGC, Beirut Group Collective.
Yeah.
So you had that, like the old school kind of sound, soul, funk, rarities. Then you had techno, but there was that void in the middle there where all these other kind of funk and like disco and house and wasn't kind
That's more modernized. Yeah. That sound that was missing was the in between of the modernized sound of the BGC, of the new era, and the techno dominated scene. Like listen, Beirut always had a proper music education. We had a lot of talent. We had people exposed to that sound a lot, but exposing new crowds to new music in a scene that has been there for a while was always through baby steps. There wasn't always a big leap. Like we knew that there are a lot of DJs that love to play house music, but they always adapted to the common sound. So this was the drive that got us to start with house music in the first place.
Okay.
Like it's something we enjoy. It's something our crowd enjoyed. It's something that DJs love to play. And even globally, techno was taking over everywhere. So we said, why not? Why not just stick to this sound if it makes us comfortable about it? And even if we reach like 2-3 people in a crowd of 100, over the time, they're going to grow into a community by itself. And this was the main vision of Feedasoul, is just growing a community around the sound that we all love so much.
Before it was a label, the name Feedasoul was like the collective name from early, like back in the day?
The label started before the collective. We were, it started as just a coffee shop chit chat between friends. And then Patch and Papa Soul actually like, let's start this label. And I was a bit behind them on the vision with that. I'll be honest with you. Like I looked at a label in Lebanon, and I think it's way too risky to start something like this. And we still weren't. We were established DJs. We knew music. We understood DJing, but we still didn't have this banger of a name to back up the label. Usually, this is how it goes. Someone with a good name uses his name and his reputation, push his label. So we did it the other way around. So when so Patch, being the technical genius he is, he comes up the next day after that coffee shop. He goes to Papa Soul and he's like, we need to do this and this and this and this and this and this. And that's how you start a label. And the label just started. So I came in about a few months later. It's like, okay, guys, you have your shit together, you know? this is something starting, and started to see the vision that they had, and we started working together. The next thing you know, the label was well established, and we were there.
Yeah,
we were just there.
Right.
Like,
so when you all moved from Byblos to Beirut,
actually, I was the only one that actually moved. The guys stayed in Byblos, the studio and the offices are still in Byblos till date.
That's cool.
But yeah, we started exposing ourselves more to the Beirut crowd.
Okay, so when you made the move to start speaking to a Beirut audience and moving that way as a collective, was the name Feedasoul then, or did it come later? Because like the label started in 16, right? So
2016.
Yeah, so before that, and making that transition to Beirut, was there a collective name, or has it always been Feedasoul? That's what I was trying to sort of figure out.
It's always been Feedasoul for as long as I can remember.
Okay.
Because we actually based the label in 2016, and we didn't expose ourselves to Beirut up until late 2017.
Okay, right.
So,
but you've been DJing in Beirut for about 10 years.
Like, we were basically based in the north, Byblos and the north, more than Beirut. Like, we had a couple of gigs here and there down in Beirut, but we stuck to our region, to our crowd, and we based our pillars from there.
Okay.
Like, the infrastructure was all based from there until we felt like we were good enough in what we do, and we were confident enough that we can deliver to a bigger audience, and that's when we decided collectively to take the move and start exposing ourselves more to newer crowds.
Got it. So now sticking with your vision to create such a, like, you guys kind of went up against odds here with what, and as you mentioned, with starting a whole kind of like new kind of sound for the city and for the country, pushing this sort of sound. Dealing with the criticism, I guess, and also, there's that fine line where, we've got to make a name for ourselves, but also there's do we seek validation as well? And how do you navigate around that? How did you guys navigate around that, dealing with the criticism and just really kind of making an honest name, and tell me a bit about that.
Like, honestly, I think that house music was there. It wasn't something we created in the region.
No.
I think we just took a step further in actually exposing the sound more, because there are wonderful, wonderful and talented house music DJs that come from a funk and soul and disco background and even hip hop. So, and then I think what was missing were platforms to expose that sound. So when we first started, we shifted the sound of the label a few times, like tweaking and adjusting, because we had just started. We didn't actually have much experience in what we were doing. So it was a series of trials and errors until we hit that specific sound that resonated with a lot of DJs and audiences, and people started enjoying it. So when we did that, we put validation aside. Like, we were self-validated for a while. Like, are you good? Do you enjoy doing this? Like, every team meeting, like, is this a sound you would actually play in a club? Is this a sound you would feel comfortable actually playing? Yes, then stick to it.
Right. That's all it took.
Like, at first we were like, but if we take this sound and we play it, would you actually put it, if you were downloading music or researching new music and you heard this track and this wasn't a Feedasoul track, would you download it and actually play it?
Yeah. That's a great way to like do your own personal A&R for the label, like it's like, yeah.
That's how it started.
So simple.
At first we adapted too much, like, and we didn't do it for a long time. We did it for a few months, and then we just said, like we released a few releases that we weren't comfortable playing ourselves. And if we're not comfortable playing ourselves, why would we expect people or to listen to them? So then we just gave it our background, and we started looking for artists that we would actually enjoy working in, be it local artists or international artists. We never put a barrier on that. Like any artist with good music that we feel that we could relate to, and the crowd could relate to, and the listeners could relate to, we'd sign it. It wasn't a big issue for us. And I think that was the turning point for Feedasoul, and the growth turning point for Feedasoul, because people actually enjoyed that.
Well, well, after listening to that latest compilation, I found it extremely refreshing, because I was talking about this last night with Balu from Saudi.
Yeah,
and
we've actually played together a few times. He's an amazing DJ, an amazing human.
Absolutely. Yeah, so so Balu and I, we were talking about like the subgenres of house music and these fads that sort of come and go. And I'm not going to like mention what kind of house music that is, because I don't want to offend anyone's personal taste, but whatever. Yeah. It's like, but there are all these kind of sounds that I feel like they just come and go, and whereas where I came across your label, and this is what I found really refreshing, is because there's this element of just good house music. Like it's house music that I think, like some of those releases that I heard, you can play them in 10 years from now, like 10, 15 years from now. It's that, or I could have got it 10 years ago. You know, it's that timeless kind of sound that's like, there's melodies. And was this the direction? Like, was that the kind of like, we want to create lasting music here, you know, like, was that
like, first, when we first started to define the sound of the label and the path we wanted to go under with house music, we realized something very important, that house music is a very vast umbrella. Mm-hmm, like exactly. It's the most diversified genre out there. Like you cannot define it into one straight path of sound or a single model of music. So we realized that we had a common taste for a certain style of house music, which was influenced by a lot of soul, hence the name Feedasoul. And soul never dies, you know. It's just lasting. So if it has those elements that really feed your soul musically, I think that's what makes the music timeless. And I gotta give it up for Patch and Papa Soul, and they're heading the A&R department, and they're doing an amazing job. And because they never really cared about how big the artist is or how many followers he has on SoundCloud, or they just cared about the quality and the elements and the guidelines they put in selecting their music. So this was also a big up, because we discovered artists through chit chats and community groups, or stumbled upon a track on SoundCloud by mistake, and they turned out to be artists that we learned a lot from. And the artists themselves made a way to define the sound we were after. So like the decision to go with this sound exactly came, we stumbled upon it by just actually giving people chances that maybe some other labels missed.
Right. So aside from the actual sound, there is a selection process in certain artists as well that are sort of new and up and coming, or just talent, really good talent that fits the sound of the label.
I think like the presence of the artist was never an issue with us. we never I don't think like one time we sat down and listened, this guy's music is okay, but he has 100,000 followers on SoundCloud. He could give us push. That was never the drive. This was never the aim of Feedasoul. We always aimed on releasing good quality music, and music everybody enjoyed. So, and it's part of our responsibility as a label to push this artist into reaching where he wants to reach musically and in his presence, trying to expose his sound. This is what a label does at the end of the day. It's exposing people to new music. So really selecting the artist is I think is 100% critical on the sound that he's portraying and never on the artist himself. Like, of course, we need to be able to communicate and deal with him as a person, but I think we've been doing a good job with that. And the A&R department has been doing a great job in keeping in touch with our artists and following up and just creating a community of people. And I don't just like to call them artists we've released. They became family. We listened to their advice. They listened to ours. We shared topics. We talk about music in general, and that's I think the most rewarding part about Feedasoul and what we do is actually we're learning more from Feedasoul than we've ever did before.
And then there's artists not just from the region and Beirut for that matter, but there's people from Europe.
We have a few artists from Beirut. We have from Europe. We have from Australia. We have from the States. We have from Africa. Actually, we're not bound to any borders.
Really cool.
Anything that sounds good and fits our sound and fits our profile, we're good with it.
Yeah. Oh, I think you guys are doing a remarkable job. I think I was really blown away by the compilation. I was just like, whoa. Actually,
that compilation is marking. It should have been released in October, but 2020 happened, and we were just trying to keep up with everything.
Everything changes this year.
Yeah, but this compilation, we called it 4 for the Soul, as in 4 for house beats and 4 for the soul. And it's marking 4 years of Feedasoul, which we're so proud to be here 4 years later, still doing your thing. And
pushing through this year as well. A challenging year.
Definitely was one of the hardest.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's I guess a good way segue to this next subject I want to talk to you about is, Lebanon, has gone through so many ups and downs and challenges, and you've moved now to Dubai. Basically because of the situation in Lebanon and finding a new, trying to find a new way of living and a new place to live and get settled. I think we've all been challenged this year about, making plans and, but the thing is that with Lebanon though, I feel like Lebanon has gone through so much challenges and so many, turmoil and even this year, I feel like that there's some kind of level of like thick skin that Lebanese people have developed, to dealing with adversity and dealing with, this kind of ongoing sort of challenges. And not to say that this year was not any like different from all the other stuff that's ever happened. So, but would you say there's some sense of resilience that's been developed as being a Lebanese man and your peers and your friends and family that this year worked out and it's like, it's just another tough year for us, do you think that's been, living in the present moment,
Honestly, I'm really glad you brought this up and that you brought up the word resilience. I think to the Lebanese people, it's the only time where resilience is actually a down factor and not something positive to say about them. because they don't deserve this, you know. The Lebanese people are a hardworking crowd. They're educated. They've spread all over the world, and they do not deserve the events that happened this year. And being resilient is automatically combined with being okay and moving on with what's happened. But I think now's the time not to move on. Now's the time not to be resilient about it. And actually, because it's creating so much stress, and I know, like, I left because of this stress. I left of the stress because I needed to handle everything, and everything that was going on, I needed to be okay with it and move on fastly so I can just continue with my life. And this, they always portray the Lebanese people as being resilient as part of being oppressed. They're oppressed. They're not resilient. They've been drained from their energy. They've been drained from their creativity. They've been drained from everything so far, that I think resilience is just another factor that they had to have. They didn't choose to be resilient. They just had to survive. And when it's not a choice, it's oppression. And I think, like, Lebanon has been going through war after tragedy after tragedy since the early 70s. And it's been around 40, 50 years now. And like, even in the civil war in 75, which was one of the most drastic wars that Lebanon has been through, there was always this release factor that they have. Like, the music never stopped in Beirut. Like, Israel was bombing us in 2006 and the clubs were still open. People were still dancing away. This is the first year or the first time where the music went, like, it went completely silent. And I think for that factor, like, from my background, it added, at least for me, it added 50% more stress, struggling with economic crisis and all that, just because you couldn't release anywhere. So I was lucky enough, honestly, and I cannot complain. I was lucky enough to have family abroad that I could just drive myself out of the country. But there are many of my peers and my friends and my family that want to leave, not because that have to leave. They reach a point where they have to leave. They don't want to. I didn't want to, but they left us with nothing. So I don't think resilience is something that the Lebanese people want to entail themselves with anymore. They just want to have a decent sense of life, because they had it. They had a taste for it. You know, we were the party capital of the region. We were the arts capital of the region. We were always proud to be on the map in everywhere that's happening, and then being on the map because of corruption and explosions and people dying and people starving and people. That's not us. But they portrayed us this way to the world, and that's what's going on. That's what's really sad. And I know that there are a lot of people talking about it, and I came to the show and I had this mentality. I only wanted to portray what was good about Beirut and about its music scene. But honestly, like, we're trying our best to give back, and everybody's trying their best with fundraisers, with streaming events, with everything, to raise money just so that this culture survives all that's been happening, so they can build up again. But everything's gone. That's just the reality of it. And rebuilding now, people in my age, in their mid-20s or early 30s, they've invested so much in this country that they fear that if they invest once more, they're going to lose it all again. And this was my main driver for leaving. Like, I got many chances as soon as I graduated from university to leave the country. And no, I saw potential. I saw people that I could relate to, that shared the same love and passion for music and culture like I did. And I look at these people now and they're just struggling every single day. And I don't think anyone deserves that, and especially not them.
So I guess so. I understand what you're coming from in terms of resilience versus depression, but do you feel that because of the challenges, not to say that it is like the resilience could be almost a way that has prepared Lebanese people to be able to deal with this. Not that to say that it's like a good thing and a positive thing, but it's kind of like they've been, because like you're talking about generations here now, even before 2 generations before you, that have that have been developing.
It's been happening over and over again. Yeah. But I think resilience, if you want, is a survival instinct right now, rather than
that's what I mean.
We have to be resilient. We need to survive. Our kids need to survive. We need to build a country for our kids, and we just don't want to send them millions of miles away just for the sake of them having a taste of a decent life. And that's where resilience comes in the best,
Yeah. So I guess that has, I guess, paved or created a preparation for, but that's, again, it doesn't take away, well, okay, we're resilient. That means we can deal with anything. No, bring it. No,
just give us a break. As simple as
it's like exactly. Yeah. Well, so living in the present moment, like I guess that is also because of this resilience. The Lebanese people have learned how to kind of like enjoy, or not to say that no one has future plans or future goals, but it's almost like you guys are like forced to kind of really enjoy, the present moment the best way possible, and find the beauty in today,
Exactly.
Tell me a bit about that for you. Like you mentioned that before this year, you could see a bit more of a clearer vision of the next 3 to 5 years, but now it's more of a short-term thing.
If you would ask me in 2019, I have to admit it was a good year for all of us. We were working constantly. There wasn't such a political and economical turmoil where we could actually focus on the things that needed to be done. The label had a clear path that it was going under, and we had a growth plan and a strategy and all that. And for the time being, nothing has changed. The goals are still the same. Like, we just want to grow and expose new music and expose ourselves more and just cater to bigger crowds and cater to different countries and different platforms and all that. But we just went easy on them, so that when they come, they will come. We're not rushing anymore. We just removed the timeline and left the goals. So when they happen, they happen. When it picks up, we move fast. When it slows down, we slow down with it. And this is actually something that 2020 taught most people on all different aspects and all different kinds of work cultures. Because if you don't slow yourself down when you need to, you're just running really fast into a brick wall. This is what I learned personally. And so I moved to Dubai not knowing what I'm moving to do, and it just started picking up. Like, listen, I feel good about doing this, I will do it. I don't feel good about doing this, I will leave it aside. And we adapted that mentality a bit for the label. We kept on, from a label perspective, it's a bit easier and a bit tougher in certain situations. It's easier because it's a virtual realm. You can still cater to people. And you can, because of the streaming platforms, because of all that, so people can still listen to their music regardless of where you are. It's just been tough keeping up with the costs ourselves of the running the actual label and all that behind it. especially being run from Beirut and all the bank restrictions and the capital control. So we're just like, there are obstacles we're trying to get over, but the vision hasn't really changed. We're still doing our thing just because of the modernization of how a label works and connectivity through the virtual RAN. I think that's it. So it really helped us. So if there's, on a personal level, if there are no gigs or no parties going on, it's okay. We still have something. At least this is a privilege for us. We still have something we can keep busy with and cater to people with and give back to our community with.
Yeah. Well, what's next for Feedasoul and you? What and for Ledwarf? What's happening?
Like I'm just trying to, as Ledwarf, I'm just trying to just keep my name just out there a bit. I'm focusing more on my personal sound, improving things I wanted to improve but didn't have time for, be it skills, be it musical education, be it researching new sounds and new artists. I'm focusing more on my role as in Feedasoul. I used to work in Feedasoul as their PR and events management and all that. So since that stopped, I've taken a toll a bit, given my background in finance and strategic planning. I've taken a toll bit on the marketing perspective of Feedasoul. So
right.
I'm focusing on that. And we're just trying to push Feedasoul to the limits we can push it right now, given the situation, and just make sure we're always on top of everything going on and still catering with the right sound, with the right to the right crowd, and giving back to our community. That's like we've done around 4 or 5 fundraisers until now, and we just want to keep doing that until there's the injection of life back to the party scene, and back to clubs and back to like actually dancing with everyone again. And that's a big factor. And Feedasoul is just gonna be here for a while now. I bet on that. We have a great team of people working day and night, nonstop, investing. Even though we might not see a physical return right now, we know it's gonna happen at some point, and we know there's a responsibility we have towards people following our music and enjoying it, and towards our artists and family and community. And we were branching out a bit from just being a simple record label. We have an engineering department run by our good friend Ryan. He's an audio engineer from Beirut, and we're trying to mess around a bit with musical instruments and try and create something from there.
Okay.
It's a fresh department that's been working day and night, and it's still in its research and development phase. But I think it's something new and cool, and just focusing on creating a good community around us that we can give back to, and they can just push us to actually get music out there. Just that's the main goal of it.
Where can people find you online?
They can find us through Instagram, Facebook, Bandcamp, Beatport, SoundCloud.
Yeah, all the usual suspects. Okay.
Any platform out there, Spotify, Deezer, Apple Music. We're all over the place.
Awesome, man. Well, it was great chatting with you today. I think I'm glad that you're here in Dubai. I think you're going to be a great asset to the community here as well.
Thank you.
So I'm excited that you're here, and looking forward to what's going to happen over the next 12 months. Looking forward to hearing you play out more. Man, welcome.
Hopefully playing for crowds soon and not just through games and radio shows. But I guess it's all good. It's a pleasure being here on your show. You've been doing some great stuff yourself. And much respect to you and all that you've been doing for the community and the electronic music scene in the region and worldwide. Actually, I can't say the region. Yes, James Locksmith is all over.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Look, yeah, thanks again. For those of you who want to know more about Feedasoul, check their label out. It's fantastic. Join the James Locksmith newsletter. You can head to jameslocksmith.net to join the community. All the Electronic Music Man episodes are now up to date on the website, so you'll find them all there. Jad, thank you again. Ledwarf in the house.
Thank you.
Take care, my friend. Take care. Bye-bye.